From R.D. Smothers Wealth Management, this is The Retirement.
When you retire, if you want an exciting life, you need a boring investment strategy.
Matters.
If you enter into retirement without a plan for income, you're not retired, you're simply unemployed.
Podcast.
Hey, this is your host, Dale Smothers, and you're listening to the Retirement Matters Podcast. My hope is that you will find the information you need in every single show on how to do one of the three things: either saving more money more efficiently, planning better for your future where you can live in retirement worry-free, or my favorite, how you can live a happy and fulfilled life in this life you have been given. We know that your time is valuable and we appreciate you spending it listening to this episode of the Retirement Matters Podcast. On this episode of the Retirement Matters Podcast, we discuss the most recent attacks of Israel on Iran and how this will affect the market, or at least how we expect it to affect the market. Now, this is one of the most timely episodes we've done in a while, so depending on when you're listening to this, this may be old news, it may be dead wrong, or it could have been exactly the way that it played out. I foresee this happening one of three ways. Either one, Iran unconditionally surrenders, which I do not see happening. The second way I think this could play out is that America sends bunker busters over to Iran, and with the attempt to completely dismantle their nuclear program, attacks key, very strategic areas of Iran, and there's no regime change being pushed or requested by the American president. And the third way, which would probably be the most detrimental way to the market at least, and I think we have history to look at for that reasoning, is that perhaps America does end up pushing for regime change in Iran. And with U.S. troops involved, we push into Iran to overthrow the government. Now, either of those three ways would have an impact on the market. How the market reacts is dependent upon which of those three come to fruition. And I believe two of the three result in a positive impact on the market. So how does the investor move forward with this? Well, that's what the show is for. And I hope that you find this show not only informative, but also educational in the sense of what to be doing in the times of war in the Middle East. Let's get straight to this week's episode. And again, the timeliness of this episode may make some of the things that you hear irrelevant, but the message and the principles behind it are evergreen. And for that reason, I hope that you enjoy this week's episode of the Retirement Matters Podcast. Good morning to you. I hope you are doing well and you are ready to start discussing all things retirement matters. In today's show, we are jumping into some world events, current events that are taking place right now that could influence the market. And I'm going to give you my take on how those things may play out, as well as some things that you need to be doing in preparation for those events. We're also going to discuss this AI craze that's going on right now. The AI trade, the artificial intelligence trade, is upon us. It is the hot trade in the stock market, and it is likely taking your 401k to new highs. If that's not the case, then we need to discuss why. And we're going to talk about what artificial intelligence may do to the workforce as a whole. And then lastly, I hope to get to a point where we can discuss taxation on your savings and why you need to be aware of how your savings are being taxed to make sure that you are benefiting yourself as much as possible when you are saving and quote-unquote investing money for shorter-term goals. Now, taxes are important for your retirement monies as well, but I'm going to dive into some things like maybe CD money or things like savings accounts, money market accounts that you have. If you got a large amount of money in those for safety and security, there may be a more tax-efficient way. All right, let's go into a real quick pause for positivity this week. And I'm not going to belabor the point here. The reason that we have this section of every show is simply to maybe give us a different worldview, a different life view, a different way to see things in life that take place. Sometimes we bring positive news. Sometimes we bring a positive thought, but the reality of this pause for positivity, it is in place on this show. Every single show we do, it is in place for one reason, and that is that there is so much negativity in the world. There's so much negativity on news. If you turn on the news, you will begin to have a grim view of what the world is today. And if we don't look at that in perspective, if our scope is too narrow, we can begin to think everyone around us is bad and we are the only ones that have any ounce of sanity. And the reality is that's just not the case. That's not the case. That's what the world news would like for us to believe. And depending on what side of the aisle you sit on, perhaps politically, you may find yourself tuning into one station over the other on a more regular basis. Now, in the finance world, I watch a lot of news. I mean, I've got to keep up to speed with what's going on in the market. And we've been blessed as a firm to not only have to watch the news, but be a part of the news. We help make the news. We discuss topics on a regular basis across the nation on national publications. I recently got back, just a couple of days ago, got back from a New York City visit where I was able to sit in with some national publications, NYSE, Yahoo Finance. We were with Cheddar News, Schwab TV, all from the trade floor there at the New York Stock Exchange. And we were able to sit in with Charles Payne on Fox Business, Making Money. This particular series of media appearances in New York City was unlike any of the past ones that we've done because I was there for an entire week bouncing from station to station. So I got to experience a lot of the city. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because New York City has this negative persona, this negative perception, if you will, that people there are rude, they're hateful, they're self-centered, they're egotistical. They are all city folk. At least that's what us Southern folk down here in Kentucky and Tennessee believe. But when you go to the city and you begin to interact with the people, not the stereotypes, but the people, you see that we all have very similar characteristics. We all have very similar desires. And when you smile at them, they smile back. Funny enough how that works. When you are nice to them, they're nice back. For the most part, they are proactively nice. I got to witness a lady who was crossing the street. And if you've ever been to New York City, you know they don't wait for walk signs. They just cross when they want to. And so there was a lady who had came from the other side of the street, crossing the street, and she was walking towards me. And there was another woman who was right in front of me about to cross the street, headed in her direction. And this lady walking across the street was already through the street. There was a box truck to our left where it was hard to see. It was hard to see around that truck. And the lady approaching me and this other random woman pointed to both of us and says, "Hold up for a second, there's a car coming." And that hit me like a ton of bricks, because what I saw there was a human spirit of love, compassion, and looking out for your fellow man. I couldn't tell you where she went to church, if she went to church. I couldn't tell you what religion she was even. I couldn't have told you where she came from, what her name was, or even what side of the aisle she sat on when she voted. But what I could tell you is that she was trying to make the world a better place by helping people who just didn't have the same perspective that she had. And so what I want to do with this Pause for Positivity is get you thinking about how wonderful the world actually is, and how if we look in a perspective of history, even our political arena that we find ourselves in is nowhere close to as violent as it once was. At the founding of this country, if I'm not mistaken, and God, I hope I don't have my history wrong here, but I believe it was Alexander Hamilton, I believe, who was killed in a duel. He was killed in a duel. That's where you and the person you are having an argument with pull a gun out and shoot one another. That is where we've come from. But the news media would have us to believe that this is the worst time ever, and that political enemies are so bitter now, when in reality, I think it's just two different viewpoints. For the last 20 plus years, we've had one predominant viewpoint, and that is globalization. That viewpoint of globalization is under attack with a different viewpoint of nationalization. And either of the two in extremes can become a negative thing for the world and for Americans. At the same time, I don't think that a difference of opinion means that we are in a crossroads or a impasse, if we can say it that way. I believe that we are much more alike than we are different. As a Republican or a Democrat, there is definitely something that we can love about one another. And it is upon us to take the action of making this world a better place, one person at a time. That's the pause for positivity this week, and that's my challenge for you. Whether it's your enemy, your neighbor, your family, I want you to go out into the world this week and impact someone in a positive way without the biases or preconceived notions of who you think they may be. The judgment and the prejudice, the prejustice, that's where that word comes from, the prejudice that we may have, the prejudice of that person's lazy, that person is a deadbeat, that person will steal from you, that person will never smile at you. Erase those things and do your best to impact them in a positive way, and you will see that the world begins to change every single day, one person at a time. It's up to us. That's our challenge. All right, we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we are diving into world events and what's going on in the world right now with Iran, Israel, tariffs, trade war, the deadlines that are approaching, all of those things and how they can impact the market. Don't go anywhere. We're coming back with more Retirement Matters right after this.
You're listening to the Retirement Matters Show with Dale Smothers. Dale is the founder and president of R.D. Smothers Wealth Management. We specialize in building retirement plans that allow you to walk away from the worry of running out of money. If you'd like to chat with a member of our team, you can do so absolutely free by calling 270-600-PLAN. That's 270-600-PLAN. Visit us online at rdswealth.com and be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter.
All right, welcome back to the show. Let's get into a bit of world news that is directly impacting the market direction, like where the market is actually going to be going over the next 2 to 3 months. And it could also impact where our soldiers are sent over the next 2 to 3 months. This is a big deal, and it's something that we need to be paying attention to, not only for 401ks and IRAs if you're close to retirement, but also just in general. It's good to be in the know on what's going on with world events. Again, making sure that we're not taking the medicine of the world is as bad as it's ever been, but staying in the know. And so if you've not been following the news, here's a quick tidbit of what's happening and what has taken place. And I want to be very careful here. I am certainly not preaching one side or the other on the political aisle. I know that there are those who feel that Israel is at fault. There are those who feel that other countries are at fault. I'm going to tell you my opinion on some of those things. But no matter who is in office, no matter what political power is the governing body of the country, and to be real frank with you, no matter what religion you are, our firm is here to assist you in making retirement as successful as it can possibly be. And a big part of that is making sure that we're keeping our mind on your money. And as we mind your money, as we make sure we're navigating your investment plan correctly, geopolitical, specifically, in this case, geopolitical events are something we need to be paying attention to. So one thing that we absolutely have to have our attention on right now is what's going on in Iran and Israel. And you do not have to be a Bible scholar to understand that this has been going on for thousands of years. But right before COVID, there was an American deal reached. There was a new administration that came in, tried to negotiate a different deal, And then when COVID actually happened, the world's focus went elsewhere. Then in October of 2023, Hamas, a terrorist organization believed to be backed by Iran, takes over 250 individuals captive as hostages from Israel. Israel strikes back. This is what we know as the Gaza War. But all along, Israel knows that Iran was behind it. Now, couple that with the fact that Iran is consistently saying we want to destroy Israel and we are seeking a nuclear weapon. And as soon as we get it, we're going to send it to Israel to wipe them off the map. Things are starting to reach a boiling point. So fast forward to June the 12th, 2025, just a few days ago, and you see Israel taking matters into their own hands. After Iran has proven not to be working towards a deal with the U.S., if you remember, Donald Trump gave them 60 days to sign this nuclear deal, saying they would not pursue a nuclear weapon. On the 61st day, Israel bombs Iran. And they put a significant dent in the Iranian nuclear project. Supposedly, according to Israeli and U.S. intelligence, there is one bunker remaining that, if destroyed, would devastate Iranians' capability of producing a nuclear weapon. And Donald Trump has said repeatedly, Iran will not have nuclear weapons. This particular bunker is so deep into the earth that it would take an American bunker buster missile to initiate the strike against their Iranian program. And this is where we have to start paying attention, because at least as it stands when I record this show on the 20th of June, going out, no telling when you're hearing this, we are not yet involved in this conflict. However, if America gets directly involved, we expect market volatility. If America announces that they are sending troops into Iran, or even if he's just sending them into Israel to support their troops, we will likely see the market pull back. But what happens after the war is over and how quick the war is won, let's say, would determine where the market goes from there. If there is a bunker buster bomb dropped in Iran, I would expect that the market actually sees that as a positive thing. Iran and the variable that is called Iran is no longer. The bunker buster, if successful, would completely get rid of Iran's capability of having a nuclear weapon. And for that reason, the market could very easily see that as a positive thing, even though America was directly involved. However, if we take the course of action that we unfortunately have taken with other Middle Eastern countries over the last 30 to maybe even 40 years, if you go back far enough with Saddam Hussein, if you take that approach, the American involvement in Iran could be a very prolonged, nasty, and ugly involvement in Iran, and there will be a vacuum that is filled by extreme terrorists. At least that's what history has to say about it. We don't have to go far back to Muammar Gaddafi and Libya. Was it 2011, I believe? I'm doing a lot of this without notes, so forgive me if some of these dates are off, but based off of memory at least, 2011 rings a bell. In Libya, and that's just one particular country. We've done this with Afghanistan. We've done this with Iraq. We've consistently tried to play police over there and be a kingmaker, and it's failed time after time, and that has caused tremendous issues over the last at least 25 years, and we could probably go back to 40 years and show where it's just been failed policy. And so I pray, and I think you should be praying as well, that Donald Trump's hand and that his wisdom is guided by the Lord in this situation, because this is a very critical situation that could be made or broken, if you will, make or break, with one action. And that action will likely be an American action. So this particular topic, being fragile, is one of a few key points that we've got to be watching with the market. Now, I wanted to go into some detail with that particular issue because it's a fairly new issue, and I wanted you to hear this from a voice of neutrality. I have no political agenda here. My only agenda is to make sure that you know what steps need to be taken in the market. So here's where I'm going to give you some real-life advice. If you have money that is currently in the market and working, I don't see this to be any reason for you to pull that money out now. This reason alone, this particular issue alone, is not the reason you should be taking your money and putting it into safety. At least not yet. There's no reason to do that. And there are other things that may govern your movement in the market. But if this is the only one you're looking at, then that's probably not the reason to put money into a hiding place. However, if you are in cash or in a safe spot right now, this is certainly not the time to be diving in to the market. So we're in this wait and see mode of the market right now until this Iranian crisis is cleared. And once that variable is behind us, I think you're going to be in a place where you can make more definitive action. There are other things in the market that may govern what your decision would be, but ultimately, whether it's tariffs and the deadlines that are approaching in July and in August with the European Union and or China, maybe that's one thing we're looking at. Another one could be rate cuts and whether or not the Fed decides to lower rates, which ultimately is derived based off of the strength in the labor market and the weakness of the dollar or the power of inflation. One of those things is going to govern what the rate do based off of the Fed's decision. Maybe you're looking at those things and all the complexities of what you should be making choices on. But one thing you absolutely have to do is make these decisions based off of where you are in your journey for retirement. If you are close to retirement, you need to be taking close account of, do you have enough money for retirement? And if so, if the answer is yes, and it's a definitive yes, then why are you risking money? Why are you putting money to work and risking that money that you already have when you don't need the money you would gain from the risk? In other words, why put money to work that you have for money you do not need? So the question then is, well, how do I know if I need it? A couple of shows ago, I was telling you about taking Andrew and Matthew to the fair, and Matthew looked at me and said he needed $5 to go play fishing. And I handed him a dollar bill, and he stood there waiting for more because he knew he needed $5. But if he had not known exactly how much he needed, I could have handed him $5, and he may have still stood there waiting for more. I could have handed him $10. And especially at Matthew's age, not understanding the value of money or what it takes to make the game happen for him, the fishing game in this case, he would have stood there with no real certainty as to whether or not he could complete the desired task. This is what we see with retirees. We're not crystal clear on how much money we need. Therefore, we stay in the game far too long. And that is where R.D. Smothers Wealth Management comes in. We will help you understand whether or not you have won this quote-unquote game towards retirement. And if that's the case, then let's take a little bit of risk off the table. Now, I'm way over time in this particular section, and it's taken entirely longer than I thought it would, but this is good information for you to know about the global events that are impacting the market, but it all boils down to what you specifically should be doing, and if you are not for sure of what your next step needs to be, I can tell you the one that you need to take is calling our firm, 270-600-PLAN. 270-600-PLAN will get you in touch with a team member. We can set up a time. Or what's even better is that you can navigate to our website, rdswealth.com. You can click on schedule a meeting, and you can set up a time that's convenient for you, for us to call you for a 15-minute phone call just to see where you are and what questions you may have. We can help you. We can assist you in answering those questions and tell you what your next step needs to be based off of your specific situation and location in your journey towards retirement. We would love to do that with you. And if it's something you'd be interested in maybe getting a little more information on, again, 270-600-PLAN or rdswealth.com, we'll get you there. All right, we're going to a quick break. When we come back, we are talking very briefly about the artificial intelligence move, why it's important for the market, and whether or not you should be concerned about your job being replaced by a robot someday. Let's go to a quick break. More Retirement Matters after this.
Thank you for listening to Retirement Matters, presented by R.D. Smothers Wealth Management. If you'd like to speak with us, give us a call at 270-600-PLAN. And if you enjoy the information in this show and would like to hear more, you can access previous shows by searching for the Retirement Matters podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. We also produce a weekly newsletter. Receive it free to your email inbox by signing up online at rdswealth.com.
All right, welcome back to the show. I want to introduce a quick topic here, and we're only going to spend a minute or two on it because I've got another section all about taxes and savings and the whole 9 yards, and I think that's important. But this was a fun little topic that I wanted to introduce to the show, where Amazon came out just a few days ago and said that they should be having humanoids delivering packages, hopefully by the end of 2027. This is incredible to think about. Humanoids, in other words, a human that is a robot, may be delivering packages in major cities by the end of year 2027. So it got me thinking, will AI replace workers in America? And we are clearly on the cusp of a AI revolution. For those of you not familiar with what AI stands for, it's artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is not just a computer, it's a computer that can learn from past mistakes, and it can learn from any other computer's mistakes that have been made on its network. It's a very intelligent being. You almost can consider this something like the Jetsons. So artificial intelligence coming to the workforce very easily has a chance to replace some workers. But here's my take on it. I believe that artificial intelligence will be a very similar thing to, say, an ATM. When the automatic teller machine, the automated teller machine, when it came out, many tellers could have said, well, this is the end. No more jobs for us. But the reality is it just made banks more efficient. It allowed for more transactions of banks, therefore more revenue in the banks, therefore more employees, maybe a few less tellers, but more employees in other areas. ATMs did not replace tellers. The same thing can be said for Zoom. When Zoom comes out, Zoom, the meeting space, the software to have virtual meetings, everyone became familiar with Zoom in COVID. When Zoom came out initially, it was said to have upset the meeting space for businesses. And from that, many investors derived that their need for corporate real estate would dwindle, that offices would likely no longer be in existence in just a few short years, they said. And this is before COVID even was thought of. The reality is, if you look up Zoom and you just Google Zoom's campus, you will see multiple locations of big, beautiful buildings full of glass and full of offices for the Zoom employees to work in. So Zoom did not replace office space. Instead, it made offices more efficient. More efficiency means more revenue, and more revenue oftentimes means more labor need, more production, more produced from this business will then result in either lower prices or a higher demand. This results in a net positive for economies, and ultimately, I believe that's exactly what artificial intelligence will do for us as well. Making things more efficient, making things more productive, and ultimately making life a higher standard of living. All right, I've got one last section to get in, so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to reset, and when we come back, we are quickly going through the taxes that you pay on your savings and ask the question of, is there a better way? Don't go anywhere. Coming back with more Retirement Matters after this.
It's 4th and 1 with 2 seconds left in the game. Less than 1 yard separates you from victory. You have the best running back in the league, but your coach calls a Hail Mary.
As silly as that sounds, we see a lot of retirement managers being far too aggressive with your investments when a more conservative play would be a better fit. You have questions, we have answers.
Contact R.D. Smothers Wealth Management, 270-600-PLAN. That's 270-600-7526.
All right, welcome back to the show. I'm looking at our time and realize I have about 30 seconds to get through this, so not a great deal of time, but here's what I want you to know. When you have money in CDs or in a savings account, and it's money that you are not doing anything with, but you've just got it there for the safety and the return, you're not happy about the return, but at least it's something. It's a 3 or 4% rate of return, and you don't have to worry about the market taking your money. You are paying unnecessary tax on that money because you are taxed on the gains that money makes, whether you take those gains or not. There is a way to have that tax deferred until later, and even when you pay the tax on that money, it's less tax than you would have paid under the CD rates. There are ways to do this and still have complete access to your funds, even more so than what you would find in a CD, and still have a great deal of downside protection. We can talk about that strategy if you're interested. 270-600-PLAN. Probably for this particular strategy, it would be best to set up a time with an advisor. rdswealth.com. Again, rdswealth.com. Set up a scheduled time. We'll call you for a 10 to 15 minute conversation around how you can become more tax efficient in your savings and your CD money. All right, and just like that, time is gone. It's crazy how quick this show went. I apologize for spending a little bit more time on the understanding of what's going on in Iran and Israel, but I do think that's important for you to know. And if you would like any more information on this show, what we've discussed, or how you should be taking your next steps in retirement, we're here for you. Our entire team is ready to start working for you on your behalf, making sure that you can retire the way you desire. 270-600-PLAN or rdswealth.com to set up a scheduled time. Whether we talk in person or right here on the same station, until next time, always remember, save money, plan well, and live happy in retirement. God bless.
Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management and RD Smothers Wealth Management are not affiliated companies. Investing involves a risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. RD Smothers Wealth Management is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by RD Smothers Wealth Management.